Welcome to Dads with Nerdy Ambitions. I'm your host, Steve Pugh, and joined with me tonight is the wonderful, the amazing David Perry, and coming back for his third time, Dana Carvey. How are you doing, sir?
So you just, I was sitting there cooking dinner and I was like, is he going to botch my name for the third time?
Yeah,
let's see if he does it.
I feel like it's a tradition now. I have to go out of my way to find ways to botch your name because I even thought about it. I even said, I was like, am I going to say Dana Knudsen? Am I going to say Dana Knudsen? I said, no, screw that. I have screwed up his name twice. I'm going to keep this flag going. I'm going to stand on that hill. I will fight on that hill.
You will die on the hill.
Yes, we are going to, and we are going to continually find ways, and it's going to get more and more clever every time you come on to screw up your name.
I love it because eventually there's going to have to be a Ghostbuster reference in there. I think it's perfect that you started off with the Blue Thunder reference instead, so I'm good with
that. So there is no subject for tonight. This is a straight, it's been a while since everybody's been on. It's been a while since we actually had an episode. I meant to do some episodes during the holidays, during December, but a pandemic happened and everybody decided to order as much as they possibly humanly could online. And I was working about 69 hours. I think my biggest week was 71. Adult jokes. My lowest week was 68. My highest was 71 hours. And I was dead. Like 70 hours.
That was like working, sleeping. That's it.
Legitimately, I haven't done that since the Navy, where I used to work 12 hours on, 12 hours off, and my 12 hours off, I was still doing tons of stuff like it. And then to come home, and I commend my wife. I truly have to give her props on this. Truly, truly do. Like, she took care of the twins, the family, as much as she possibly could, and I still found time to do some family stuff, still, celebrate the holidays. But I was basically essentially from our last episodes, even during those, to last week, like we're still feeling it like earlier this week.
I was just going to ask you, I mean, now that Christmas and New Year's have passed, are you still inundated with
now everybody's spending their gift cards that they got. It's still there, but not as nearly as much.
That makes sense.
So, and then Sunday, last weekend, I got my booster, and that put me on like death's bed. I hated life.
Was it as bad as the second booster?
So here's a weird thing. I got the J&J. I was one of the few that got the J&J because it was a one and done.
Right.
And I was down for a little bit, but it wasn't bad. This one, I was negotiating with whatever deity would listen to me.
Which one did you get this time?
Pfizer is what I ended up getting. My wife got Moderna. Me and my son, who's 10, got his shot, his first shot. So he is, he was scared. I'm like, these are fine. And then I'm like, Satan, you owe me. So
horrible.
Yeah, that was
horrible.
Like, it was terrible. So this December was this has been an active nerdy month and a half. A lot of shows came out, and as I was sitting here talking to David before we all got started, I don't know how I did it, but I saw a lot of these things too. I was sitting there, I was like, I totally watched The Witcher. I went and we went to a theater. We did it on an off day. We bought our seats and we were super safe. Saw the new Spider-Man movie, and we got the Book of Boba, and somehow I watched that. There's Hawkeye, so we got a lot to talk about. And you, Dana, have some really cool new toys.
I do.
Yes. So let's start with you. What did Santa bring you for Christmas?
Well, ironically, Santa didn't bring me anything.
I believe that.
A lump of coal?
But it was in Lego form. It was actually Legos. It was just all
Lego coal?
Legos.
Black lumps of coal. Actually, that's actually really funny. I might do that next year. But I think I might have. I don't know. I talked to different people for different things. But one of the things of being an adult fan of Lego is that I have no kids. I have, my wife and I both are big nerds. And throughout the whole year, if there's something cool comes out, I buy it. because you know what, I mean, and 9 times out of 10, I'm going to get the deal on it or the extra bonus giveaway with it. So it's silly for me to say to her, well, you might get it for me, or you might not get the best deal. So I'm just going to go ahead and get it. So for example, Black Friday, and this was weird. So it kind of is Christmas related. This is the first time that Lego has released on Black Friday a UCS Star Wars set. And, you know, for twice the price of a normal UCS set. And they still sold out of them within a day. It was $800. So the Lego UCS AT-AT that we're alluding to here that I had gotten for Christmas. And the funny thing is that originally when it was released and announced and everything, I'm like, I've got one of the littler ones that you got me for my birthday, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. I don't need this. And then I started seeing the pictures and the interiors and the build techniques, and I'm like, damn it, I gotta have it. And then they announced that they were giving a buildable Luke Skywalker Lego saber handle to go along with what they did a year or two ago, where they had the Yoda one. And I'm like, when the Cantina came out, and I'm like, well, I can't have just the Yoda one without the Luke Skywalker one. So Black Friday, do I want to do this? Do I want to do this? And so I turned to my wife. I said, so what are you going to give me for Christmas? She's like, what do you want? I'm like, I want this. I want the UCS AT-AT. She's like, well, you're going to get it anyway, right? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, fine. Merry Christmas. So,
yay!
Even though it wasn't under the tree and it's been sitting in a box in my office, and I didn't open it and start building it till after Christmas. I was diligent about that, saying, well, this is the Christmas gift from my wife and I to myself. So I waited till Christmas. And let me tell you, I haven't built every single UCS Star Wars set, because there's a couple of them that came out when I was in my dark age, and so I didn't get around to building it. But ever since then, the only one I haven't gotten so far is the Republic gunship, and I'm still on the fence with that one. But the Falcon, love it, fantastic, but it's fragile. It's very fragile. It's not as bad as the old Star Destroyer that was held together by magnets, fragile, but it's still fragile. Mm. And again, it's huge, it's massive, it's not really, it's meant to just be looked at. Yeah. The Star Destroyer is fantastic. It's leaps and bounds over the first one they did, because there's no magnets. It's solid. You can move that thing. It's great, but it's a giant pizza wedge. I mean, it's a giant gray pizza wedge, and it's hard to display because it's weird. You got to put it in the right place and have it out of the way. But the AT-AT, it's the size of a medium to large size dog. It's huge. And the build techniques in it are fantastic. It comes with a little wrench and I think it's a couple new pieces that didn't exist before, so that you can put it into the legs and you turn it so that the legs will move appropriately and stay solid and locked in. And you can awesome. And you can move it move both up at the hip and at the knee. And then they've designed some new pieces for the feet, because if you recall the way the AT-AT feet are, there's like these curved pieces that go up so that it allows the foot piece to swing in the original toys and stuff like that. Well, they created two new pieces, or a new piece, to make that function happen. And so the feet move perfectly and it will lay flat no matter what angle you get the legs in. The interior details are fantastic. There's a little piece inside that, if you remember back when we were kids, for the original Kenner toy, where you could actually, do a little mechanism in the back of the neck and it would move the head. Mm-hmm. Same thing. And that's awesome. It's even got a function underneath the chin, so that the chin guns, so you can hit the button, or you can kind of you got to do a little kid magic, but you move the two levers and it shoots the guns. So the attention to detail is fantastic.
The TLC was put into this.
Totally. I mean, some Lego UCS sets, they're what they are, and they're cool. They're awesome. They're big, expensive pieces of plastic. But this thing was a labor of love for somebody. The design team took their time and years probably to get everything just right, and requested certain pieces to be made so they could do certain functions exactly what they wanted to do. Yeah, it's a love letter. It's a love letter to.
How long did it take you to make it?
The funny thing is, like, normal Lego sets, when you open them up, you get a bag or two. Maybe a bigger set, there's 5 or 6, and they're usually numbered. Mm-hmm. And so this one, hang on a second. Mm-hmm.
quick while he's not around.
I'm sorry, I had to kick the cat out of the room. He's like, let me out, let me out. So normally that, you'll find like, bags like 1 through 4 or whatever it's gonna be. UCS sets originally, they didn't number bags. You got like a big box of bags. Luckily, they now number the bags. But instead of having a bag per step, it's 2 to 4 bags per step or per numbered bag. So when you're doing step or bags 1, there's 3, and you open them all up, put your pieces out, get them in your little piles. And a lot of people I know will sit there and go, no, just dump them all out and you pick your pieces as you go. I'm old. My eyes are getting bad. I like to sort out the pieces. I'm looking through the instructions. Yep. I can grab exactly what I'm looking for. So there's a little more time to do that a little bit. But I would say on average, I would give it to an hour to an hour and a half per bag. So there were 17 bags. So I would guesstimate maybe 16 hours, give or take.
That's impressive.
Some bags are a little more complicated, a little more complex, and some bags are pretty straightforward and bang, 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 you're done. There was a lot of Technic. I don't know if you're familiar with Technic when it comes to Lego, but lots of pins and rods and bars and things to create that structural integrity to keep the thing solid. It is a giant Technic model that has been wrapped in plates.
That's awesome.
It's solid. I'm not questioning whether it gets tipped over and knocked over and things go crazy and fall over the place, but the shell of it, or the shell may fall pieces off, but the superstructure underneath, rock solid.
That's awesome. My wife got a Lego set for Christmas. I got her.
Props.
Yes. So she's a big Friends person. So I got her last year. I got her the Friends set, which was Central Perk. So this time it's the apartments. Right. And I got her that, and because I got it from Lego, I got a Ross keychain.
Nice.
So it's right up her alley. So she was completely thrilled with it and everything. She looked at it and she goes, I haven't built the first one, and I'm like, that's absolutely okay. That's not an issue with me at all. Not a problem. She's like, yeah.
So interesting fact, because when they released the apartment, they brought out more copies of Central Perk, knowing that people who may have missed Central Perk might want Perk with the apartment now. So there's 2 things, whatnot. The coffee shop was probably one of the best selling sets for Lego in 2020 and through and even 2021. And the interesting thing is that the demographic for the people who were buying it were 40-something women.
I believe it. I absolutely, because when did that
not something you'd ever say about Lego in any other
exactly. So, and the fact that your wife got both of them for Christmas or whatever, it's a testament to the demographic that may or may not have been targeted for that, but who grasped it and said, "Oh, I love Friends. This is awesome." I get little Ross and Rachel enjoying it.
Her and her sister see something in Friends, or like it's an easy win for me because I know what to get her. Like if I see something Friends, I'm going to buy it. It's like, oh, okay, now I know how to stay on the good boy list. I buy something Friends and I'm good for a while.
I have a friend of mine who's like that with Nightmare Before Christmas, because his girlfriend / fiance / wife now is a huge Nightmare Before Christmas friend or fan. So anytime there's something new for that, he's like, boom, done, good, I'm golden.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In a heartbeat. I get her whatever. I bought her wine glasses one time and anything, but that's her fandom. So I make sure to support, as a nerd, as a fandom fanatic, I make sure to support those. David, were you a good boy for Christmas this year?
I don't know about that.
You get cold too? Wow.
Skirt that shoulder real quick.
Here's my problem. And I get this talk from my wife, my mother, and my father every year in the middle of November. And the talk is, because like Dana, we don't have kids at home.
Yeah.
We're both adults.
Yeah.
And we're doing okay. Okay.
Yeah, right.
So
you got disposable income.
Right. So throughout the year, if I see something, I just buy it.
That's how I am. It's how I am typically am.
So every year in the middle of November, right before Thanksgiving, I get the talk from my wife, my father, and my mother. I need a list of things of things that you want for Christmas, and you're not allowed to buy them.
Oh,
so
that's rough.
So, but at the same time, what I end up doing now, because of the pandemic, is I end up making a small list of things and I send them off to my various family members who insist on buying me gifts, even though I tell my parents I don't need anything from them. This year for Christmas, my mother got me a couple things, but she came to visit us. Mm-hmm. And to me, that is a much better Christmas gift for us than anything that she could buy. So for Christmas, I got things like khakis and shoes and socks and a wallet and that sort of thing.
God, you're such an old man.
I am.
This is necessities that now are cool.
No, you're right. You're right.
Come back to.
Right.
I totally get it.
Because for myself, I went to Galaxy's Edge and bought a lightsaber.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, it's
exactly.
But that's the thing. And I'm the same way, because my in-laws, my mom and my wife, they're like, what can we get you? And I'm like, honestly, the things that I want are far too expensive for anybody to buy, and I don't
too difficult to find.
Yeah,
too difficult to find.
Like, or
they are so specific, you don't want somebody else picking out what you get.
Right? Yeah,
I can tell my wife I need khakis, 33 waist, 29 inseam. Go get me khakis.
Right.
And that's how it goes.
It's exactly.
But one of the things I did buy for my wife. My wife bought for me is I bought a pair of silicone lacquer from the artist out. I don't know if Dana, you might be familiar.
I follow her. I know exactly what you're talking about.
The Pam, Twi'lek Pam, she makes silicone lacquer for Twi'lek cosplay. Yeah. So I told my wife I wanted a pair of those for a character that I'm working on, and she said okay. And we went to her store, and she's like, "Oh, I'm taking off until after Christmas." Crap. So after Christmas, when she reopened her store, I went and bought some.
Nice.
Which is technically a Christmas present from my wife. But that's also one of those things that and again, I know a lot of people are like this, that I would rather buy something that some of the things that I want are so specific that I do not want somebody buying else lacquer, a digital camera, or anything like that, I also just don't want money. But I tell all my friends, and I tell a lot of my friends and my family, I said, look, my wife and I are not poor. Yeah. And I would, we like you were saying, we have disposable income. I have a good job. We don't have kids at home. Our expenses are fine. I would rather, even in this age of COVID, if you're vaxxed and whatever, I would rather you come over and have dinner with us one night. Mm-hmm. Or I would rather have my mother come up for Christmas, or I would rather visit with my dad and my stepmom and my brother and so on. Nice. than get any more shit, because I have a basement full of crap. And the last thing any of us need in this life is more crap. So rather than get gifts,
what you're talking about.
And actually, it's interesting that you say that we don't need any more, and the toughness about trying to find specific things. So Lego and Target did an awful, horrible thing this year. They decided to do their own in-store mini little Lego thing where they're doing clothing and accessories for puzzles and snowman kits and little plush space dolls. Yeah. There's no way I could have even thought about trying to tell my wife, okay, you need to get up at 3 a.m. on December 4th, and you need to get this entire shopping cart full of things. No, there's no way that was going to happen. No way that was going to happen. And even small segue in that scenario, I had forgotten about it. I set my alarm to get up and do that like the day before. So here I'm on Friday and I'm like, no, this isn't until Saturday, you ding dong, reset your alarm. But then I had something came up and I totally forgot about it. And I woke up and I saw that social media and my buddies were texting. They're like, oh, this is out. Nobody can get this. People got that. And I'm like, crap. I slap on, and it's like 11 o'clock. I'm like, no, I got to get these. Because, I mean, if you guys don't know this and that, they did classic Spaceman Lego plushies, blue, red, white, and pink. I had to have them. I'm like, I was almost in that whole, what is it? Is it FOMO?
Yeah.
Fear of missing out. So
yeah.
I was in complete FOMO panic on Saturday morning. I'm like, oh man, I'm checking the app. I'm checking online. I'm like, okay, there's none at my store that's local. There's none at this store. I'm like, oh man, where are they? Oh, wait, there's a store 30 minutes north of here that says they may have these in stock. They're not available for early, for like, you know, like you can't like purchase it and they'll go out and pick it out of the store. It's not available for pickup. You got to go into the store and go look for it. I'm like, I go wake my wife. I'm like, I gotta go. She's like, what are you doing? I gotta go to the store. She's like, why do you gotta go? I gotta go. Boom, I'm driving. I think I may have caused myself engine problem because I wound up having to get a new engine a week later. I don't know if it's related to the speed I was going or just that my engine was going bad anyway, but it was covered under the Hyundai warranty. So we don't even talk about it. Anyway, I got to the store, walked in, was able to get all the plushes I wanted. I got the shirt I wanted. I got a big mosaic set that would do a classic Spaceman. I was like, oh, this is great. This is awesome. And there were a couple of things I'm like, nah, those other things I'll get later. I'm sure those, but no, everything was going. This was like a one-time deal. And you know, like you've seen it, you've heard me, you've talked about it. Lego is a way of life at this point in time. I mean, it's borderline worse than Star Wars. It truly is. So I skate a thin line between Star Wars and Lego. When they're together, it's peanut butter and jelly. So, but yes, there were so many things that were out of stock and sold already. And people were like, I will pay you triple the price for XYZ. I'm like, that sounds great, but no, I need this.
and those people are the reason why they're sold out everywhere, because people are swooping in, and that pink plush Spaceman is on eBay at 5 times whatever you paid.
Right. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. And so I have a love-hate relationship with all the toy manufacturers and San Diego exclusives and, you know, whatever convention exclusive or whatever it is going to be. Now there's Pulse for Hasbro and stuff like that. I have a love-hate relationship with the whole industry because of this, because Lego did a thing where normally it's like, you know, they'll do giveaways with purchase. GWP is what they call it. So you go in, you buy something or a certain dollar value and you get something free to go with it, which is cool. Hey, you know, I bought this $350 Mos Eisley Cantina and they're going to give me this little Yoda saber set. This is cool. Right. Well, what you'll find is you'll get people going in there scalping, and they'll send in moles to buy sets specifically so they can get the GWP, and they may turn around and return the bigger set, or they'll do something. They're doing a way to get those exclusives so they can flip them for 3-4 times the price.
Right. Because there are people our age, Gen X and a little bit older, who grew up on this, who now have their kids are leaving the house. They have disposable income. And so now they have a collection of action figures that are still in the package. Oh yeah. The 4-year-old virgin is funny, but it's too accurate in some way.
It's like, oh, I have those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crap.
Yeah.
You know, I have not gotten into this, but this is not a toy.
No, it's a statue. It is a work of art, is what it is.
This is an adult collectible. Yeah. And there are folks our age who used to play with these things, that we used to blow them up with, you know, melt them with magnifying glasses and blow them up with firecrackers and all that other stuff. But now they have tapped into that market, Pulse, and like you were saying, all of the toy companies, and they're not selling to children to play with them. They're selling to those children's parents who are sticking them in a box. Now, some people like you, Dan, I can see your Legos on the shelves behind you. I have a lot of toys out of their boxes because I'm an opener. I do not buy any of this stuff as investments.
No.
Okay. It is
yes and no.
I don't. I know
it's not an intention. I do have friends of mine who literally fund their hobby by buying things and selling them and flipping them. I buy things with the intention of that maybe someday I might sell this. I don't know. But if I don't have it interested in the first place, I'm not going to buy it. And one of the things I do like, and Dave, I know because of some of the things you have in the back of your shelf that I can see, I love that Grand Animal Thrawn in the glass case there. Last year, man, we really got a topic, but this is all going to come back around, I promise. Last year, my wife, for years, she'd been telling me because a friend of ours was a big toy collector and he would get all sorts of hot toys and introduced us to what hot toys were. And Sideshow Collectibles, you know, the quality and the stuff like that is fantastic. So for my birthday last year, she got me Din Djarin and Grogu for the hot toy. So that was my first hot toy that she got me. And then I was supposed to get the Ahsoka Tano for Christmas, but it said that it was going to ship and it still hasn't received yet. But I'm getting one. So the Ahsoka Tano is coming. It hasn't shown up yet. And then she'd also gotten me a gift card for another holiday or another birthday or whatever like that. So I wound up getting the Boba Fett because, I mean, right, Dave? I mean, right. Yeah. So now I'm at this stage where I had to order the TK Commander because I've got a TK and I need the TK Commander because if I'm going to have hot toys, I'm going to have to get a Stormtrooper. I mean, there's just no way around it. I'm kicking myself because I now want to go back and get the Imperial Officer because Dave, you know, I mean, why would I not get the Imperial?
Right. You're starting to go down I'm
going down a rabbit hole. And this was one of the reasons that I didn't want to start getting hot toys because I knew what it was going to do. I totally. So what did I? So other than the AT-AT for Christmas, what did I get? Yeah, I had to get the Death Watch hot toy, which I haven't opened yet, and he's going to go back in there with Boba and Din, and I really want to get the Bo-Katan as well. And I kind of feel like, all right, I've just got. I'm going to limit myself to hot toys in just Mandalorians. That's what I'm going to do. I say that now, even though I already said I'm good at TK.
Right.
But it's that disposable income thing. And now
tell yourself whatever you have to sleep at night.
Yeah,
I sleep with a fan on. That's how I sleep.
Because you need 2 Imperial officers, one stock, and then one that you've got to customize
to be closer to me. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, that's why I bought several of the white Boba Fett's when they did them at Walgreens a few years ago because I know I'm gonna take one of them out. I'm gonna paint it to look like my Mandalorian.
Yes, you are.
I'm so lucky with my hobbies because most of them it's miniatures and gaming supplies. Like it's D&D, it's Warhammer 40K. It requires.
Wait a minute. If you're doing Warhammer 40K, you're already investing in a car.
Oh yeah, no. I made that. I made that joke. I said, look, it's. You don't become a true Warhammer 40K player until you realize the reason it's called 40K is not because it takes place in the 40th millennium. That's how much you spend. That's how much you spend. Oh yeah, no, they're absolutely stupid expensive.
Yeah.
I get to play with mine. I play with mine, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting use out of this, so it justifies it. What's the Warhammer
meme? It was Henry Cavill, who of course is in the Warhammer. It says Henry Cavill's going to make $1 million an episode for The Witcher, which means by the end of the show, he should be able to buy a 3,000 point army or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, it is a stupid expensive hobby. However, I love it, and which is why hell, you spent what, $800 on that AT-AT?
That's only
the Falcon.
Yeah, and truthfully, and I won't give dollar values, and I'm sure that some of it I got on clearance prices or just. I'm always looking for the deal.
You always have to look for a deal.
You got to.
But you're not getting a deal on UCS sets.
Yeah. Well,
now I will say this. I will say this. One of the perks, to go into your friendly local gaming store is typically they do discounts and they have like membership things for gaming supplies. Right. You don't get that as much on Legos, but
you don't. But as I said, I think we talked about this in the last episode where, if you can befriend a Lego store employee and they don't want or don't plan to use their entire allotment for their discount, you can get certain sets that are high value at a discount price.
There you go.
So it can be done.
But So talking about The Witcher, so we did get a season 2 of that. That was awesome. What did you now, Dana? I'm assuming you didn't see it.
I have not watched season 2 of The Witcher yet because my wife and I watched season 1 and she really, really enjoyed it. So she said, you can't watch season 2 without me. And I'm being good and I'm not watching it with her. This is the same woman who had foot surgery and we couldn't go see episode 9. Or no. Solo. It was Solo and Endgame. We did a double feature. That was a long day. But we had to go it was like a month after Solo and Endgame came out that I finally got to see it. And it was so hard. It was so hard keeping spoilers away from everything and just going, yes, I know. This makes no sense why I haven't seen these. But yes, same thing for The Witcher. I haven't seen it yet. However, I did catch Lost in Space. So she let me go.
Oh my God. I can't believe I forgot about Lost in Space.
I love Lost in Space, the reruns from when we were a kid. A lot of people were dissing because they changed the story, they did this and that. And I'm like, oh, come on. I mean, did you remember the movie in the early 2000s?
With Matt LeBlanc?
Yeah. This is 10 times better than that. And I still love that. I still love that movie. Great dance mix for the intro song. But they did a great job. And I felt like a little bit like maybe they're rushing this a little bit to finish it up. But they did leave it on an end note. I mean, they do tie up most of the little endings and things and makes everything pretty happy little present at the end. But they do give it a good possibility if somebody
they're always going to leave themselves an opening
to do another series. Yeah, because supposedly this was supposed to be the series finale. So we've got 3 seasons. But the way they ended it, it was like, oh, if you don't do another series, I'm just going to be solely disappointed. So hopefully they will.
So without giving you spoilers, The Witcher 2 season 2, I absolutely loved it. David, did you see it? You did.
I did. Although there are some things in it that to me did not make sense because I have not read the books and I don't play the games.
That's fair.
So
yes,
I tried not to go into it being spoiled. My wife has read the books. I have not read the books, but I watched. I talked to a couple guys I work with who have played all the video games and read the books. And they pointed me towards a video on YouTube I'm not going to link to it or anything, but apparently they are linking in a lot of the storylines from the books and from the video games.
Yes.
That if you don't know anything about some of the things that happen, there's a prequel series coming out, and then there's an animated feature as well.
Right.
For Vesemir, the older Witcher.
Yes.
Okay, so I was kind of lost going at the end of it. I was kind of like, what was this, and who are those people, and how does this tie in? But then when I watched this and said, well, this is from this is from the 3rd book, and this is from,
they do a lot of
this
jumping
video
around.
Game.
But it was done in a way like and I know you've seen the first season, Dana, like how it was very confusing up until like the last episode. Like it was like they were all over the place.
Yeah.
Now I'd read the books and I was like, wow, they are really going all over the place. Where are they trying to, like, I knew what was going to happen. And it was interesting the way they did it. They did it a lot more fluid in season 2. I very much enjoyed season 2.
There was not the time skipping around that like there was in the first season.
And that was almost what made my wife not want to finish watching it, because she got confused. She's like, I love this, the visual and everything seems cool. I love the characters, but I have no idea what's going on because they're jumping back and forth. And I'm like, now granted, she was dealing with pain medication from surgery, and I'm like, it's understandable. But it was even for me, I was like, I'm like, okay, this is in the past, or is this in the future? Where is this?
It was legitimately confusing.
Now, I will say this.
And it wasn't like in Westworld, where there were looking back in Westworld, there were obvious visual cues of when it's 30 years ago and when it's now. Right. That in retrospect, a lot of things in Westworld make sense when you watch it backwards. But on The Witcher, it was just like, what the hell is going on? Who is this person? Where did
Yeah.
I will say this though, Dandelion gets a badass jacket in season 2. The Bard. He has
which by the way, Lego has produced a Bard figure, so you can toss a coin to your witch.
Oh, snap! I love it.
Just came out on the 1st. So I'm excited to get that.
So okay, so we'll glaze over The Witcher because I don't want to spoil it, especially for you and your wife, especially something that is that good.
It was very good. Season 2 is very good.
Very phenomenal.
We talk about Cowboy Bebop.
Absolute abomination. I hated everything about it. I wanted to go in. I wanted to go in with the mentality of liking it.
Yep.
But I made a reference about the Boba Fett. The fight scene in Boba Fett was just as bad as Cowboy Bebop's. Like it was terrible.
Yeah. I mean,
it was horrible.
I am a huge fan of the anime. I got them on DVD as they came out, as they slowly released them. I have, and it was hard back then. I mean, there was very few collectibles. I have a 12-inch Spike Spiegel, and I have a little swordfish that I got from something else that came in a nice little sleeve box, which is kind of cool. That's one of the things I want to talk about. I'm going to come back to Cowboy Bebop. Go back. When we're talking about hot toys, and we talk about a lot of the higher end collectibles these days, Kenner and Hasbro could have learned lessons from the Japanese and the Chinese long ago. Make that backing card slide out. I can cut the tape. I can slide the backing card off. I can take the toys out, get rid of those twist ties, make the plastic molding so I can snap the toy back in and out, so that when I do want to put it back in the box and display it on the shelf, I can. And that's what I think is great about the hot toys and a lot of the higher end collectibles that you find from Hong Kong and Japan and stuff like that, that the packaging allows you to take things out, play with them, display them, put them back in, and they don't drastically lose their value because you took it out and you put it back in.
Well, the other side of that is Hasbro. Number one, I think a lot of the executives at Hasbro they think of their products as toys to be played with, but they also want that collector that's going to buy two.
Right.
And one of them comes out of the package and the other goes in a box or on a shelf and never comes out. But you're right that something like Sideshow. I mean, I can take my Clone Troopers out of a Sideshow package and I can display them and then I can put them right back. Diamond Select is also very good about that for their Starship models and some of the other things that they do. But you're right. You would hope that they would have learned, but you know.
But I think you're right on the money there, as far as like they're expecting their demographic or their market to buy two. So, you know, if you're going to buy two of something that's $12 to $20, okay, I can get it. But if you're buying $350, I'm buying one. So you better make it so I can take that thing out.
Yes, I agree. I 100% agree.
So back to Bebop. So I some of the very, very difficult to find toys for the stuff back at the time when it came out and collectibles and like that. But I went into watching it and going, okay, this is one of my beloved anime. The cast looks fantastic. The visuals look fantastic. They brought back the composer to the soundtrack.
Was great.
The trailer was almost slice for slice for the intro. I mean, you were seeing characters that you already know. I know who this character is. I know who that character is. This is going to be great. This is going to be awesome. And the first fight scene out the door, you're like, oh my God, it's the Power Rangers.
I didn't. I can tell you the exact moment where I stopped watching, when they panned out at outer space and it shows the giant casino in outer space, and I turned it off. I couldn't get into it. No, I couldn't make it. No, it was
because the casino had to happen. I mean, the casino was.
Oh yeah. No,
had to happen.
It had to happen, and I get it, and I've seen the anime, and it's not my cup of tea, but I appreciate for what it is. And I went in and like, okay, I am curious to see how they do this. And they failed horribly. Netflix, and I enjoy a lot of things that Netflix does. They bring me The Witcher. Love The Witcher. They have not done a anime to live action successfully. Because they did Death Note, which is bar none one of my favorite animes, which is an anime that got me into enjoying certain animes, and I loved it. And I love William Dafoe, great actor. He does great things. Death Note live action was a hot garbage. It was just a mess. Abomination.
I think the problem and I read an article. I read an article specifically talking about Bebop and
Americans shouldn't do live action animes.
They well, no. That the problem is that Netflix was trying to cater to too many audiences at once, and that's why they were ultimately going to fail, because you've got an Eastern story and storytelling that most Westerners are, they're not familiar, they're not comfortable with the way the storytelling can be done. And so they were trying, and then on top of that, they were trying to appease, original fans, but trying to also appease typical Netflix fans who have no idea about the property. And so the story got muddy, and the original appeal of the original series was not so much the syndicate and Vicious and all that, and where Spike, what his background. It was about these bounty hunters and their day-to-day and the antics that go on. And it's why people watch, Storage Wars and American Pickers. It's the day-to-day story that intrigues them. It's not this overlying backstory. And that was what was appealing about the original series. We didn't get that. It was all about the syndicate and everything that going like that. And they muddied it all up, and you're like, it just didn't have the same feel. You got a lower budget, so we're missing all the cool space stuff. We only got a little bit of space stuff, and they were doomed to fail because they couldn't specify, hey, we're just going to do a direct correlation or do the original. It's justice. No, we're going to do Hollywood Netflix thing, and we're going to try and make it appealing to an audience that it originally wasn't designed for. And
I couldn't get into it. But like I said, the fight scene, I'm going to segue that fight scene. We're going to go right to Book of Boba from that. I know you, Dana, I haven't seen the episode that came out today. You haven't seen the episode that came out today. David has seen it. David,
I will not spoil it.
Thank you. Thoughts? What are your guys' thoughts on the Book of Boba? I'll go ahead and I'll say mine real quick. I'm in for the long haul. I want to see what goes on. I was not impressed at the fight scene with the guys with the shields. Yeah. Like, as soon as he got the guys with the shield surrounded him, my first thought was like, all right, Boba's about to just straight up flamethrower these entire guys. And it's not like the shields were huge. He could have just aimed it at their feet, and eventually they're going to have to land. Right. So go Boba Flamer, and he would have been golden.
Right.
The fight scene was atrocious, and whether it was writing, editing, choreography, I don't care. That was shame on them. Shame on them.
So my wife would have been right there with you, side by side, complaining about that fight scene, and she did, and she's right, and you're right, but at the same time, I know.
Don't say vulnerability.
No,
don't say vulnerability.
No. I'm going to say Favaro is most of what he touches is gold, and has been. He's a fantastic writer and director, and he's also teamed up with one of the best Star Wars writers and planners, Dave Filoni. And Filoni is a master storyteller. He Absolutely. Does not give you what you're expecting out of the gate. He has done this time and time again. Rebels, first 2 episodes, I was like, this is too kiddie. I can't. No, this is horrible. No, what are you doing to me? I want my Clone Wars back, because the Clone Wars, if you go back and you watch in the beginning, it was a little slow and it was a little kiddie, and then it started getting more in themes and it got more adult. And Rebels,
who's this Ahsoka person?
Yeah.
Why does Star Wars need a kid?
Yeah, exactly. Why I don't need this bratty snot-nosed. Yes. One of my most beloved favorite characters,
and then look what she became.
Exactly. I mean, you can't get enough of her now. And for me, that's what I'm stepping into Book of Boba Fett, going, whatever you think, just let it slide, because even in The Mandalorian, we did get a little more action in the first couple episodes, but the story really wasn't relevant to us until halfway through the first season. And then you're like, okay, whatever I was thinking I may or may not like about this, I'm going to go back and just give me more. And that's what's going to happen here.
I was hooked right from the beginning with The Mandalorian. hooked
Okay.
right from the beginning.
Well, but again, we hadn't had anything like that. So
No.
you were going to jump into it like that.
It was very different. And
Right.
Dave and I went on a huge long tangent to the point where Dave got more passionate than I think I've ever seen him. And I got told, no, I am wrong. And I had to accept that as an inevitability.
Yes.
Like there was no coming. And so I loved it. But I liked the Sarlacc. I liked a lot of stuff that happened. I loved that he is, okay, here's how he survived. He is communing and working with the Tusken Raiders. And we're going to see more of that. And that's great. And I love that. Legitimately, my beef was that whole fight scene and then her chasing them up and them doing parkour and she catches them and they're like, oh, you got us. And I'm like, no, why didn't one of you just take your shield and like shield push her off the side? She's obviously not going to be able to take both of you. No, that was terrible.
Well, but that's just it. She should have been able to take both of them, and there should have been a problem with the two of them taking out all 6 or 8 of them.
Oh yeah, no,
square.
Absolutely.
And that's the big beef, is that why that fight scene was that way. Now, my thought is, and Dave, I'm curious to see if you feel this way or not, is that we've got Boba going through PTSD. Is my thought. Is that he is not firing on all 6 cylinders yet. He is, even though he's been out of the Sarlacc, he's, we had the whole thing with him and Grogu and Din Djarin in the last season of Mandalorian, and now he's coming in and taking over as the crime lord. I don't know. Is it he's a fish out of his element? Things aren't. He's having the dreams. He says he's got the dreams are back. I don't think he's on his. I don't think he's on his game yet. I think that's what they're trying to show you, is that he's not the Boba Fett you're expecting him to be, because he's not on his game, and we got to get him back to being on his game.
You're about to be told you're wrong. I'm just like,
no. I don't think that's wrong. I don't think that point is wrong. Okay, so I don't have a problem with science fiction. I don't have a problem suspending disbelief in a science fiction or a fantasy realm as long as it is consistent. Mm-hmm. And to me, the first episode of the Book of Boba Fett was not consistent with Boba Fett as a character. For example, the last time we saw Boba Fett, when we saw Boba Fett return in The Mandalorian, he waxes 2 squads of stormtroopers with very little effort.
Valid point.
He just goes to town on them.
Yeah,
and then we see him again when they bust out Miggs Mayfeld in that episode.
Yep.
And then when he gets taken down by 6 Foot Clan ninjas with stun batons,
it seems odd. I'm with you.
That is not consistent. Now,
you're right.
I will also say that the only thing that we have on screen about Boba Fett is about 3 minutes in Empire, about 4 minutes in Jedi, and then he gets taken out like a chump by a blind guy with a stick.
Yep.
Right. And so
everything else is lore. Everything else is expanded universe and hype. And we got this cool dude who we don't know nothing about, but gosh darn it, he's a badass. And that's all we know.
What we know is that Darth Vader respects him, because he talks back to Darth Vader, and no one talked back to Darth Vader.
Right.
We know that Jabba is willing to pay him whatever his fee is just to stand around.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So he has got to be a badass. We also know from the show that Fennec Shand is supposedly one of the most feared assassins in the galaxy. Now, part of I think a lot of people's problem with this, and we've talked about this before, is the toxic fan element of Star Wars. They have been raised on Boba Fett in the expanded universe. And in the expanded universe, I want to say it's Dengar and Bossk dig him out of the Sarlacc. He escapes, and then Boba Fett has other adventures. And so that's what we're used to. The Boba Fett that we see in at the end of Attack of the Clones is a kid. Yeah. It's a kid who's lost his father. And the Boba Fett that we've seen in Clone Wars or in Rebels, the animated Boba Fett that we have seen,
a little bit in Clone Wars,
Clone Wars. But his entire story arc is, I want to kill Mace Windu.
Right. He's on a revenge. He's on a revenge.
He's on a revenge.
Scenario.
So, but then we come into the Book of Boba Fett, and at the end of the Mandalorian season 2, he and Fennec Shan, they walk into Boba's palace. They see Bib Fortuna sitting on the throne, and they lay waste to everybody.
Yeah.
And then he sits down and he takes his spot, and then it cut the Book of Boba Fett will return to the Book of Boba Fett, which is fine.
Right.
Okay, so my question is also, why would Boba Fett want to be a crime lord?
Very good question.
Because he is living his best life, right? He gets to be his own boss. He gets to kill people for the adrenaline rush. People are throwing money at him to do whatever it is. Why would you want to settle down and become management?
And to further that, and this is where I'm sitting back and I'm going, okay, I'm going to accept it all and see what happens. Because another thing that was kind of wonky was when they're like, he's like, you got to send a message. You can't just not kill this guy. No, I'm not going to kill him. What? What do you mean you're not going to kill him?
Yeah.
What do you mean you're not going to kill the man? I mean, granted, it was good that he didn't kill the Gamorrean Garth because now he's got 2 henchmen. But right. that Twi'lek that came in with the mayor for the whole mayor thing, yeah, dude, you're Sarlacc or you're Rancor food, right now. I mean,
his head should have gone back on a platter.
Exactly. Right. It's like what is he doing? He's being too. It's like what I'm afraid of, and I hope I'm wrong. Is that somebody is trying to say, oh, we're trying to make Boba Fett's personality more likable because he's so popular. No, don't do that. Make him.
That's what they did to Han. That's what they did to Han Solo.
Well, it's true. They did because he was a scoundrel. Right. He was a scoundrel, and now we have to like him because he's
Darth Vader had to tell Boba Fett no disintegrations.
Right. Exactly. This is supposed to be a guy who is a badass, and now he's concerned about. We're not going to kill him. What do you mean you're not going to kill him? Right. It's so confusing, and that's where I'm hoping that Favreau, with the influence of Filoni, that there is a long-term reason that why this is all happening, and it will all make sense when we get to episode 8. Right. I hope. Or
yes,
exactly.
I 100% agree with that, Dana, because Filoni in the Filoni verse, right? That's what everybody calls it. In the Filoni verse, Dave Filoni writes for the long game.
Yes.
He because there are things when you go back and you watch Clone Wars, when you watch season 1 and 2 of the Clone Wars, and you watch season 1 and 2 of Rebels, and then you see how that plays out. You
talking about it is giving me goosebumps because those feelings are exactly why the people I know who are locked into all of this is because it's that long game. It gives you the goosebumps. It gives you the feels. It makes you want to watch more because when you start watching something, you're like, oh, I remember. And that's
because when you saw it at the time in the middle of season 3 or whatever it was, there was a one-off episode which had a character that showed up and said something or did something or gave something to someone, and then it paid off. It paid off in season 7, or then and that's how he has done it. So. In Filoni we trust is what a lot of Star Wars fans have been saying for years.
Yes.
And you kind of have to do that. Now, my other thing with Book of Boba Fett is there's a part of, and Mark and I talk about this because, well, I work for the government and have a lot of free time. But one of the things that also our other hypothesis is that the Book of Boba Fett was not in Filoni's master plan. That the Book of Boba Fett started out to back up.
We've got Dave so excited that his audio is skipping because he's talking way too fast
out.
And his brain is on.
That's right. My brain.
Pumping some coolant.
So let's back up. Season 1 of The Mandalorian was the test balloon.
Right.
Season 1 of The Mandalorian was Disney transitioning from movies, because they made Rogue One. They made Solo. There was an unnamed Boba Fett project. There was an unnamed Solo project. They had all of these things out there that they were floating around. Yeah. Well, even before the pandemic, I think Disney saw the writing on the wall. They wanted to launch Disney Plus, and they needed a flagship show. Mandalorian season 1 was the test balloon. It was, can this work? Can Disney Plus be profitable?
Yep.
And when it was wildly popular, and people were signing up. And so then they said, we need more of this. And hence all of these other ancillary shows, Cassian Andor, the Obi-Wan series, the Ahsoka, Knights, Rangers of the New Republic, all of these. And I think the Book of Boba Fett was one of those projects that they said, hey, The Mandalorian is so popular and we're bringing back Boba in season 2. Why don't we give him his own show? And Filoni looked around and said, well, I really don't have anything written for that. He doesn't fit into the master plan. And they said, well, here, let's take this off the shelf. And here's this old Boba Fett project that we had, because we have to explain how he got out of the Sarlacc. It was either going to be a prequel with him and Han Solo, or it had to be something after Jedi.
Right.
Here's this. And then here's a stack of money and go ahead and make this other thing.
Yeah.
So then the question is, because I remember when they announced this, we had talked about, I didn't know if it was going to be a movie or a mini series, or if they were going to make it its own show, or if it was going to have more than one season, because the Disney model for all of this is each of their shows, and it's not just the Star Wars, but it's also the Marvel content as well.
Oh yeah.
Is that WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Loki and all of these, there are 2 or 3 movies that just happen to be released in half-hour increments or 45, whatever the thing is. So I think a lot of people who were disappointed with episode 1 and maybe episode 2, but like you were talking about, Dana, it's an 8-episode arc. It is a 8-hour movie.
Yeah, or you are in the first act of a 3-act play, and things are being laid down.
Yes. And
they're going to evolve. Everything I am on with you for everything, except for I don't think that Filoni didn't already have an idea, and that all it took was him and John sitting together and saying, "Hey, I want to use Boba Fett in The Mandalorian, and I think this is a great segue for us." And I think he already had a plan, because Dave is definitely you explained it perfectly. Dave is the long haul story guy. He is nuggets in them within nuggets. And I think he did. And I think we're all going to be pleasantly surprised when it all comes down to the end. At least that's my expectation. I could be wrong, but I'm hoping that's where it's going to go, because Dave is a master storyteller. He is, George handed him the keys to the kingdom and imparted onto him all the things that George did right. And Dave learned from George's mistakes, and has given us this great addition. And I can't believe that this would be we can do this. I feel like he's got something going on.
I can get behind that.
Yes, I think everyone, we all need to reserve judgment, good or bad.
Yes,
until the series runs its course, and then you look back on it and say, "Oh, well, this is how it goes." Now, will there be a second season? I don't know. There could be,
or it could just be that one-off season, because they needed to tell a story to give this character continuity into the other stories that are going on, and I'm fine with that. I am perfectly fine, because I love, and that's the whole thing. We alluded to that the Clone Wars and Rebels, and even some of the things in Resistance, even though it's First Order era, there are characters and things and places that are brought into play, and you're like, you feel so much more enriched and in love with the story when you know those things and how they all connect. Now, granted, to some people that can be off-putting, because they feel like, oh, I got to know all of this. I'm like, no. The standalone stories themselves are enjoyable, but if you do follow all of that, it takes it to another level for you.
Yes.
So going on to our next subject of nostalgia, Matrix just released a new movie. Dana, did you happen to watch this one, or is this one the one you were out?
I've downloaded. I have not watched it yet. I have trepidation to watch it, because I'm definitely a big fan of the first Matrix, and I'm in some ways like that is the only Matrix movie. It's like it should have stopped there and that's it. I don't want to know anymore.
Yes, because Revolutions and Reloaded were kind of all over the place.
They were, and now granted, that all being no, again, I still got to go back to I really just
should I just ask Dana to take his headset off for this one, because I need to go on a tangent about Resurrection here.
Go for it. I'm fine. You're not going to ruin it for me. I
hated it. I hated it so bad. I hated it. Okay, I wanted to like it.
Okay,
I wanted to like it. Man, I'm usually not negative on this show.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
But it's the first hour of this movie was them going, hey, remember all your favorite moments from Matrix?
Yes.
Like when people think the Matrix, you're like, whoa. They were trying to break the fourth wall without breaking the fourth wall.
Yes.
And I hated how they did. It was so cheap. It was so cheesy. I hated it. I hated it so bad. And then I loved how here's things I liked. Right before I go completely on this tangent of being negative. This is a new year. This is not a new me. I'm not going to be negative the entire time here. All right. Damn it. I loved Neil Patrick Harris's character.
Yes.
I loved his character.
Yes.
I loved Keanu Reeves. I think he did a good job. I think the way he did Neo was fun.
Yes.
I did not like the fact that Hugo was not in this. I understand there was issues that they said, like there was conflict issues, and that sucks. I hate how they redid Morpheus. Like everybody else, it looks like their characters and the AIs and how he put them in and whatever have you. And Morpheus, they couldn't work Morpheus. I call BS. Wow. And I know for a fact they never called. Oh my God, what's his name that played him?
Lawrence Fishburne.
Yes, thank you. They never got in touch with him to bring him in. So that I put shenanigans on. I did like the whole symbiotic relationship between machines and people. I thought that was awesome. I thought the ending was weak as all out. I hated it. It was terrible. They should have. I will do this. I will give every movie a sequel. You're allowed to have a sequel because 9 out of 10 times, there are a few. I will always admit there are a few, but 95% of the time, the sequel is never nearly as good as the original. So I will give you a subpar sequel. So I will give them Reloaded, but they should have ended. And now, David, now that I have insulted you in your honor, have at me.
I like a self-aware movie. Matrix Resurrection.
It was so cheesy. It's a game, and he knows all about it, and he's just. It didn't make sense. Why couldn't they just leave him?
It did.
Oh my God! No, they could have just had him being like this.
No.
He could have been a homeless man on the street, being crazy as all out. They didn't have to make him a famous gamer.
It was self-aware, and it acknowledged that, and it actually made me hate Reloaded and Revolutions less.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Because in the context of Matrix Resurrection, Reloaded and Revolutions kind of make sense. Instead of just being that old guy in the chair going on about, ergo and, vis-a-vis and, or, whatever, all of that other crap, all that stuff that just came out of his mouth that you didn't know what he was saying. None of that made sense. It was just one cool set piece going from one cool set piece to another. And now Matrix Resurrections makes me hate those movies less, because I also kind of believed up until Resurrections that there was one Matrix movie, just like there was one Highlander movie.
Correct. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
I agree with you, but
there can be only one,
yes.
right?
Yep.
But Matrix Resurrection, in the context of the previous trilogy, makes sense. And I also went in with kind of low expectations.
Did you?
Yes.
That's a good thing, though.
Yes.
I'm a fan of going in with low expectations. I hate overhyped movies.
Yes.
To where, because it ruins it. It time and time again, I've walked into overhyped movies and gone, I hate this.
I want to say
I didn't enjoy it. And it takes me watching it 2-3 times later to go, oh, now I love this movie because of this and this and this, because it didn't have to be the hype to make it good. It was just good, but the hype made it bad. So
I don't want to say I went in with high expectations because I also watched this on HBO Max. So I didn't see it in theater, which I'm very glad I didn't. But maybe I did go in with a little bit higher expectations. It wasn't the movie I was expecting based on how they set it up in the trailer.
But that was the beauty of it. It wasn't what you expected.
It was bull crap. The first hour is all remember wins. I hate when it's
it was good.
I hate if your movie depends, if your show depends on you looking back at something like, hey, remember this? Wasn't this cool? Oh my gosh. If you spend if it was only like maybe 15, 20 minutes of this, and you sit there, David, you told me I was wrong for a good solid hour. So you're going to sit there and you're going to take this, mister.
But that was the point. That was the point of the first
15,
hour.
20 minutes, if it was only 15 or 20 minutes of it, but the fact that they wasted an hour of my time telling me about like, hey, how cool was this? When I could just go back and watch that entire movie and relive all those moments instead of having to let them remind me about them. No, screw that.
So I'm not having not seen it. I'm going to interject there because this is a problem that Hollywood has in general, or that fandoms across the board having problems and I know that the three of us cannot believe that this is even a possibility, that someone would actually go see this movie without having seen the first three. But it happens. It happens.
You're right.
And that's what movie makers are going with the pretense of, that we're going to have to spoon feed a bunch of crap to you because we're going to assume that you haven't watched the first three movies and know them backwards and forwards and by heart. Right. So that's why that hour happened.
Even though they're on Logo and Sci-Fi three times a week.
Right. Because, I mean, and again, you got to put that disclaimer up there that Hollywood knows better. Because they do.
No, my wife's never seen. My wife has never seen any of them.
Okay,
so
what was her opinion?
She hasn't seen this one.
Okay, all right. Then the litmus test will be this.
That would be
make her watch it,
yes, and see what she thinks.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, but expect to report back the next time we talk.
Absolutely, we will definitely do that. Now we're gonna flip the switches here, and David's going to be the angry one that doesn't like a movie, and we're going to talk about the new Spider-Man movie because I already know he doesn't like it.
It's not that I don't like it. I just have problems with it.
No, please tell me, because I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal, and I saw it in theater, and I don't regret it at all. And it was the best 2 hours I've seen in like a theater in a long time. It was. I was happy I saw it. I loved all the nostalgia. I loved seeing all the old villains. I love the fact that he doesn't have an Uncle Ben to die, so they took out Aunt May, and that put me in my feels because Aunt May was awesome and she was just badass. And then that was rough, and it was. I love seeing William Dafoe. I loved being able to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and them all interact and
pointing finger scene.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
When meta becomes meta.
Yes. Oh, it was so good. And the fact that they were talking about the web, like, hey, like, wait, yours are naturally, you don't have to make it. And he's like, oh yeah, it just comes out, and they're like asking him all these like weird, awkward questions and everything. I'm like, oh my God, it felt very natural. Their interactions with each other. Like, hey, so I got a question. How does that work? Does it just like get blocked up? And they're like talking about like all the badass people they fought. And he's like, yeah, I fought a Russian guy in a rhino tank suit. So that's about as cool as I got. Like, no, you're great, man. You're great. And I was like, no, it's cool. It's not that cool as you. No, you're great.
Which, by the way, small segue there. I'm very excited that this year we are actually getting an official Lego Rhino figure. That is the one member of the Sinister Six that we have not had an official figure for, and we're finally getting one. So that's my segue for that.
I didn't know they never had a figure for him.
Yeah, well, not only that, the only Electro figure we've ever gotten was the one from Garfield. From Garfield, from the second series. But yet Duplo, we've had the original comic book Electro with the green and yellow and the lightning bolts and the whole bit. We've had like two of those in Duplo, but we haven't actually ever had a good classic Electro. So that's my attempt to re-steer the conversation back but that being said, there's the popularity of the movie has been fantastic. And I mean, the fact that Raimi movies are getting like rewatched like crazy on streaming services. And the Spider-Man nostalgia is above and on board right now, which is fantastic. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, so that works for me.
I loved the fact that, so yes, there's the X-Men that came out before Spider-Man. I feel like Spider-Man really gave it that little bit extra oomph that it needed to become Marvel, to become more relevant. And it was a nice like come around back to Spider-Man to see the nostalgia with Tobey Maguire. Right. I very much enjoyed it. All right, now that I have added all this love and TLC, let's go to the haterade over there, Mr. David Perry.
Well, the reason why X-Men and Spider-Man got made first was because those were the more popular Marvel properties that they sold off in the 90s when Marvel was facing bankruptcy.
Bingo.
So absolutely. Spider-Man, historically, probably the most popular of the Marvel superheroes.
Wasn't it? It was X-Men, Spider-Man, and then Fantastic Four. Yeah,
right. And the Hulk.
Oh my God, yes.
But in terms of individuals within the Marvel comics, Spider-Man carrying his own title is probably the most popular. And he's the most popular because he's a 16-year-old kid, or was for a long time. He was a 16-year-old kid who had everyday problems. He had to go to school. He had homework. Oh, and by the way, at night, he needs to make money. And by the way, at night, he beats up bad guys, right? DC, they had Superman and they had Batman, and Marvel had some teams, but Spider-Man has historically been the most popular individual until Wolverine.
Yep.
Now, the other thing with Spider-Man movies, because the early ones were made by Sony, the MCU didn't have the rights to them. And the only reason that they even got Spider-Man into the MCU in Captain America Civil War is because they gave Sony tons of money. And then now Sony is at the point where they're like, okay, Marvel, you're writers and you can use all these characters. You can do whatever you want. Just give us our cut of the pie. So once they figured out how to get all the money back to Sony, who still technically owns the rights to them, they're going to let the MCU do whatever. So first of all, Willem Dafoe is the MVP of Spider-Man No Way Home.
Bar none.
Hands down.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
That is 100% non-controversial, and it is inarguable. Willem Dafoe is the MVP of this movie. Okay, right?
Yeah,
we could all agree on that. Even though, Dan, I know you haven't seen it, but
I haven't seen it, but from what I understand, and I'm a huge Dafoe fan in general. Yes. So I'm not surprised in one. Anyways,
phenomenal.
He carries the movie. My problem with No Way Home is, like I was talking about before, I can suspend disbelief if there is consistency within that universe.
Okay.
Several characters within this movie do some things that are wildly out of character. And a lot of what goes on is advancing the plot, hitting plot points, because I think everybody knew this was going to be Tom Holland's last big outing as Spider-Man. That they have set that up. They have set this up to be a Spider-Man trilogy, because Tom Holland is aging out of that role.
Yeah.
Tobey Maguire is barely believable as a high schooler in the first Spider-Man movie. Andrew Garfield is not very believable as a high school student in Amazing Spider-Man, right? Let's just accept that, right? Because they were both in their mid or late 20s when they did that.
Yep.
It's like watching John Travolta in Grease.
Right.
or Stockard Channing in Grease. She was like 34 or something like that when she's playing Rizzo. Anyway, so there are just some people there. Some of the characters just do some things that are wildly out of character to advance the story. And to me, that just didn't make sense. And it felt like they were trying to put this in there, trying to hit some plot points for MCU things coming later on, right? Because the MCU has been pushing this idea of the multiverse, right? Between and they've been largely doing it on the small screen, between Loki and WandaVision, and and now this and even What If. They have been pushing this idea of the multiverse, and eventually that's how they're going to bring the X-Men and the Fantastic Four in. That's how all of this is going to happen. And then they wanted to have Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland all appear on screen together.
To tie it all together.
Yeah. And I saw a lot of people, they've said, oh, this is the best MCU movie ever, and blah, 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 blah. This is not the best MCU movie ever. No Way Home isn't even the best Spider-Man movie. That would be Into the Spider-Verse.
Well, that's a guarantee.
Yes.
No question.
Hands down. Into the Spider-Verse is the best Spider-Man movie.
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
And now it's still a very good movie, and it still works in the context of how the MCU is going and the things that they wanted to do with the MCU. But I just thought that there were a lot of things that just, I couldn't suspend my disbelief enough. At the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, right? Mm-hmm. Mysterio, Jake Gyllenhaal, dies, and he reveals to the world that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, right? That's what happens at the end of that.
Right.
Okay, so, and he has led people to believe that he is some interdimensional warrior who came through a rift in time with the blip and all this other, whatever BS story he cooked up, right?
Yeah. Which was actually pretty funny.
Yes. And I liked Far From Home too.
Yeah.
But you can't tell me that when this guy dies, that somebody from Stark doesn't come out and say, oh no, he's not some interdimensional warrior. He's a disgruntled former employee with a bunch of our stuff. Hey, we want it back.
Yeah. But now Tony,
I never thought about that.
There is a lot of plot holes. And before we even get into Spider-Man, there are a lot of plot holes all the way through, and there have been some retcons that go on that are they're retconning retcons. I mean, it's crazy. And this is my problem with Marvel movies or superhero movies across the board. You are taking a medium that has 50 years of history.
Yes.
And trying to make it fit and be cohesive for an audience that doesn't understand it, but yet trying to appeal to an audience that are diehard, hardcore fans from the beginning, even if they weren't born when the beginning was, because they've gone back and they've reread everything, and they could, you got your super fans out there who are like walking canon Bibles for a property that can tell you all of the things that are wrong and why. And Dave, I am not surprised that there are things that are happening that are uncharacteristic for a character, because they're trying to shoehorn things in to make it fit the Hollywood agenda of where they want to go with something.
Right.
And ultimately, there's no way that we're ever going to not have that happen.
Right. And comics themselves, the way comics work, everybody has their own individual title. Mm-hmm. And then they get together, Colossus has a title, even if it's a limited run. Wolverine has his own title, and Iron Man has his own book, and Thor has his own book, and all this other stuff. And then they get together for Avengers, and then it's a mix of different characters and so on. And I get that, and I also understand that there are a lot of superhero groups that operate in New York. And it seems like in one episode of the X-Men, who live in Salem Center, out in Westchester County, right outside of New York, something is always blowing up the X Mansion every couple of years.
And why isn't that registered as a world scale threat? And the Avengers aren't knocking on their door going, dude, do you seriously know what time it is? Could you not have done this during the working hours? We people want to sleep.
Right, but because it's not just the Avengers who are on Fifth Avenue; it's the Fantastic Four that are in New York.
You got Doctor Strange. I mean,
Daredevil lives in Hell's Kitchen, right? Yeah. And even though that neighborhood's now been gentrified, it's not the neighborhood that it used to be anymore. Spider-Man's in Queens, so every time some alien comes in from somewhere and blows up the X Mansion, you can't tell me that the Avengers wouldn't be there, because it's 5 minutes away on a Quinjet.
Exactly.
And most of the time is getting into the Quinjet for them to fly there, right?
Yeah. So that's the whole problem with taking it from this medium, where that, hey, I read this book only because I like this character. Whatever happens outside that book, I don't care about, because I don't read those books and it's no big deal. But now you're taking all these characters, bringing them into one cohesive movie universe where people feel like, oh, I got to watch every one of these movies. I no longer care about just one character. I have to love them all. And now they all have to work together and intertwine seamlessly. and it's just not gonna happen.
Right. And they're trying. And
they are.
To Kevin Feige as the architect of all of this.
Right.
He has done, for the most part, a very good job. The retcons in the MCU are very minimal compared to some of the stuff we see in comic books.
Oh, well, but again, it's incestuous. It rolls around in itself. It rolls around itself. As soon as you get another writer who comes in and another writer who comes in, and like you're talking about a team book versus a solo book versus a spin-off book, and then if you get an executive editor or who then decides to go off and do another company, and now you bring in another one, he decides, well, I'm going to do something completely different.
Right.
And you have that layer upon layer. The MCU is trying their best to try and keep things consistent across the board. But ultimately, it's going to be hard because you're still got multiple writers across multiple scenes, series and characters.
Right. Yes.
It's a nightmare.
Right. Because every movie what the MCU has become is every movie is a spot on the map. It's to get to the next
point
one.
In time. It's a point in time.
And I also have to believe, I 100% believe this, that in every writer's room, whenever they're sitting around with this movie, virtually or however, there is always somebody, some suit that comes in and he says, hey, this is from Kevin. And he hands the guy a folder. And he says, in this movie, in Shang-Chi, the following things need to happen. And you need to put in the following name. Yep. This needs to happen. And so they have a list. And so all of these things, because we've seen payoffs, and they've done this very well, there are payoffs that happen later on that they'll put a name here and it'll show up down here. And sometimes they're just Easter eggs, like in
Guardians of the Galaxy.
In Winter Soldier, they had the list that Hydra was taking out, and Stephen Strange's name was at the top of that list. Right. So there's some of that, but at the same time,
and it's a question sometimes: is it an Easter egg or is it a future?
Is it a plot point? Yes,
right. and because we're diehard fans across for generations of the stories, we're just all giddy because hey, they mentioned this one-off thing, and then all of a sudden somebody says, we did that. We can use that. The fact that we're getting Adam Warlock.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, now granted, they completely bastardized the whole Infinity War and everything like that. The fact that we didn't get Adam Warlock and the whole thing back from the get-go, but somebody decided, hey, at the end of this Guardians of the Galaxy 2, we're going to hint at Adam Warlock.
Right.
And that was so many years ago now.
And it was so many years ago. And the fact that that Adam Warlock had nothing to do with the Infinity Stones and the Infinity War, which,
multiverse.
And that, hello, are we going to get a Crisis on Infinite Marvel Universe?
There's going to be a Secret Wars.
Oh, yes, there is.
That's already
I'm behind. Now that I'm behind.
That's already been leaked. Right. So as all of this stuff goes on, I understand what they're doing and why they do some of the things that they do. But like I said, I can accept and suspend disbelief under certain circumstances, but when there's inconsistency, again, at the end of No Way Home or Far From Home, at the end of Far From Home, Peter Parker, he's outed as Spider-Man. He's a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that someone on the Avengers doesn't say, yo, this guy went to another galaxy. He went into outer space. He saved the universe. We can't hang him out to dry like this. We are not going to send him back to his apartment in Queens with his Aunt May.
Yeah.
Get him an apartment, get him into MIT. There's no way that somebody in the Avengers doesn't make a call and say, hey, this guy not only needs to get into MIT, he needs to get into Caltech, he needs to get into, wherever it is that he needs to go.
He needs to be put into a secret think tank here in Avengers headquarters because he's an asset to the planet, not just to a particular institution.
Are you talking about the Illuminati? Oh my goodness.
No, I'm talking about the Guardian. I'm talking about the consortium of Reeds. All the Reed Richards from the multiverses all coming together, and that they're the keepers of time and space.
So that's my biggest problem with No Way Home. But a lot of the things that happen are that the goal was, let's bring in all of these. They brought in 6 villains.
They brought in, but you also got to see you got to see like a billion others.
Yeah. Right. But the point was get to spots on the roadmap, have that cool shot of the three Spider-Men together, and then have a movie. And for what it is, I liked it, but again, some parts of it I didn't. But I will also say that I am not a huge Spider-Man fan, so I don't have the level of emotional investment in this. But it's not the best of the MCU movies, and it's not the best Spider-Man movie.
All right, I can respect that.
So
all right,
that's me. Now that I've run my yap for 2 hours.
We definitely had some nerd rage going on this
we
season.
did.
I enjoyed it.
I think this is a wonderful place to wrap this up.
We're not going to talk about Hawkeye.
Dude, we've been going for so long.
Wow, yeah.
You like Hawkeye, Dana?
Let's make this very quick.
But again,
5 minute quick.
Okay, 5 minutes. So my blurb on Hawkeye is this. I think Hawkeye is a very underrated character in the MCU in general. Yes. I am not a long-standing Hawkeye fan, but I appreciate the character he is in the MCU, and I think this was a great showcase for him.
Yes.
I love the interaction between him and Kate Bishop and the whole little bit. Call it what you will. It was Easter egg filled fun and just it was a good holiday movie in 6 parts. So that's my take.
Do you think Hawkeye is a send off for Jeremy Renner?
In some ways I do. I think he will be a cameo from here on, but I don't think he will be a centralized character anymore. If they do a Hawkeye season 2 or do another spinoff, it's going to be Kate and Elena and maybe the West Coast or Young Avengers.
I agree.
Yes. I think they're setting up Young Avengers. I think that's
100%.
And I hope that's the case, because even the 2 kids in WandaVision, those were the characters of Young Avengers for Wanda and Quicksilver. So I'm game. Give me some fun. Give me some fun.
Well, and the other thing, and I'm kind of meant to talk about this a second ago, was on a meta level. We talked about the Marvel roadmap. On a meta level, there's also the thing about they got tired of paying Robert Downey Jr.'s salary because they were paying him a ton of money.
Oh, yeah. And
at some point, all of the Spider-Man actors aged out. The nice thing about Tom Holland, when Tom Holland appeared in Civil War, and then when he appeared in Spider-Man Homecoming, he was actually a teenager.
Yeah.
And so he looked the part, but it's one thing when you're in a comic book and the X-Men can stay 30 years old for 40 years.
Right.
And Spider-Man can be 17 years old and in high school for 30 years and then go to college and he's 22 for another 30 years, right?
Exactly. Actors can't do that.
Yeah, actors can't do that, except in Into the Spider-Verse. Again, the best of the Spider-Man movies.
Spider-Man was, yes, absolutely.
So I understand that. And sometimes actors want to move on and they don't want to be in Marvel movies anymore. Or, other projects come along or whatever. But I think they know when they sign on to one of these things that they're signing on for the long haul, and they usually sign them on for 6 or 7 picture deals.
Well, but that's just it. I mean, you're right there on the fact that, if we get a Batman trilogy, or we used to get a Spider-Man trilogy, or we get whatever, it's 3 movies, because by the time that 3rd movie is done, that actor or actors are either too old to play the role they're playing, or it's not believable anymore, or they're just tired of playing that character. The MCU is chucking on 20 years of these characters playing these characters, and while some of them are cool with it and some of them love it, others are like, I'm done, I'm ready to move on.
Right, but they can bring in the Young Avengers. They can bring in Natasha and Bruce and all those. They go off and they do whatever it is that they're doing. But then you can replace them. Almost plug and play. Yeah. Yelena Belova comes in as the new Black Widow.
Right.
Kate Bishop is now Hawkeye, and so on and so forth. Yeah. I liked Hawkeye, but you have to kind of like it for what it is. What did you think about the Kingpin?
I was giddy at the end of episode 7 when they showed the picture, and I'm like, he's in an Edgar suit. He's in an Edgar suit. I was all excited to see that they were bringing that in, which gives me hope for the whole Daredevil thing and the whole Punisher thing and all that's going on. I didn't particularly care for the very, very ending where Maya, spoilers for those who haven't seen that, Maya pulls a gun on the Kingpin and we hear gunshots. Maya better be dead and the Kingpin's not, because otherwise I call shenanigans.
Didn't it happen in the comics though?
I never read the original Hawkeye series. I know that it's completely an homage to that whole run and the whole bit. So I don't know, but I can't see the Kingpin getting off by a 45. Just saying. But at the same time, though,
it's a comic book.
You can do what you're going to do. But I loved the whole thing. It was so much fun all the way through.
Right. And I told this to Steve earlier. The only people who stay dead in comics are Bruce Wayne's parents and Uncle Ben.
Correct.
That's you had the same reaction. I was like,
yeah, exactly. No, that's yeah. And the old saying of no body, no death still applies.
Absolutely. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you so much for being on this wonderful, amazing tangent into nerd culture and just reminiscing about everything that is the things that we are passionate about. So let's go ahead and let's wrap this up. As always, please like, subscribe, and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are listening to us on Apple, please remember to rate and review. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, so please follow us at DNA Pod, and on Twitter at NerdDNA Pod. And you can now find, we have, it's still a little rough, we're still working on it, but we have a website up. We are nerddnapod.com. You can go there, listen to all your episodes. You can check out our friends and sponsors, people that we love collaborating with, and check them out and see all the wonderful, amazing things they do. Dana, as always, thank you so much for being on the show. It's a pleasure to have you. Love going on the Lego tangents.
It's guaranteed to happen. You know it's going to happen.
There's always going to be a tangent on the show. David, did you want to end the episode for the year? No?
You never start off the year, not the end of the year. Start the year.
Or the start of the year. Yeah, no, he didn't even want to end the year last time too.
I don't do outros.
You don't do outros. So, fine, I'll do it. I'll do this. Oh, wait, what was the line that Thanos said? I'm going to screw this up. Whatever, I don't care. Let's just go ahead and go this. Thank you and good night.